Do sounds have a memory? Can you feel pain from hearing about someone else's pain? And can listening to Mozart make you smarter? These are just a few of the strange science of sound mysteries explored in this episode. Whether it's good or bad, loud or soft, high-pitched or low, our everyday lives are filled with all kinds of sounds. Most of them we don't even consciously notice. So, while we might think we know what sound is, we actually don't. We know very little about it. Let's start with a bang and ask, what even is sound? If you are like most people, you've probably learned that sound is produced by vibrations. When a speaker vibrates, it disturbs the air molecules immediately outside it. Those molecules collide with ones next to them, and so on. Like dominoes passing on vibrations that travel like a wave through the air like this. This is known as a longitudinal wave because the vibrations are in the same direction as the wave travels. That wave eventually reaches your eardrum, which vibrates, setting off a chain reaction inside your ear that your brain interprets as sound. But that's just one theory. Sounds can also be explained as the result of compression and decompression waves. Think of a slinky. When you push one end of a slinky, a wave travels along it. The wave is made by compressing the coils close to you and then decompressing them as the wave passes. This is known as a transverse wave, because the vibrations are perpendicular to the direction the wave travels in. Now imagine instead of a slinky, you have air molecules. If you push an air molecule close to you, it will collide with one next to it, which collides with one next to it, and so on, creating a domino effect that travels like a transverse wave. And just like with the slinky, each wave has a high point called the crest and low points called the troughs. Here's where things get weird. It turns out these sound waves can interfere with each other. When two waves meet, they combine to make a new wave. If the crests line up, they amplify each other, resulting in a louder sound. If the crest of one wave meets the trough of another, they cancel each other out, resulting in silence. This brings us to the first strange science of sound mystery. Do sounds have a memory? Well, under some circumstances, the answer is yes. Have you ever walked into a room and heard music that sounded really familiar, but you could unquite place it? And all of a sudden the chorus hits and you're like, ta-da, I know this song? Your brain is experiencing déjà vu, the feeling that you've already experienced what is currently happening. Déjà vu literally means already seen in French. However, it can also apply to sounds, smells, tastes, and other sensations. While déjà vu experiences are common, scientists don't fully understand why they happen. There are a lot of theories, but one of the leading ones is that your brain is making a connection between something new you're re-experiencing and a similar experience you've had in the past. When it comes to sounds, this might mean that when you hear a song you've never heard before, your brain is able to recognize a melody that you've only subconsciously processed in the past. So in a way, sounds can have a memory. Now let's explore a phenomenon that is definitely a little more mystical. Have you ever been around someone who was crying and then suddenly felt tears welling up in your own eyes? Maybe you were laughing so hard you started crying. This is known as emotional contagion. You observe someone else expressing an emotion, your brain processes their facial expressions and body language, and then automatically starts you on the path to feeling the same emotion. In some cases, you might be able to consciously stop yourself from crying or laughing, but in other cases, the emotion is just too strong. Scientists are still trying to figure out exactly how emotional contagion works, but it's likely related to mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are a special class of neurons in your brain that fire both when you perform an action and when you see someone else perform that action. For example, if you reach for a cup of tea and then see someone else reach for a cup of tea, your mirror neurons would activate every time you observe that action. Scientists believe that mirror neurons allow you to understand the intentions and emotions of others by mimicking them in your own motor cortex, the part of your brain that controls voluntary movement. So when you see someone crying, your mirror neurons activate, putting you on an emotional and physical pathway to crying yourself. But not all contagious emotions are so obvious. Sometimes emotional contagion can come in the form of physiological arousal. If you re-giving a presentation in the person before. You was so animated and passionate that now you re-feeling a rush of adrenaline and your heart rate has gone up. Or perhaps you were rewatching a suspenseful movie and the director built such great tension that now you on the edge of your seat. Whether it's a change in heart rate or goosebumps, physiological arousal is a natural response to emotional contagion. It's controlled by the fight or flight response, which is triggered by the release of hormones like adrenaline. In some cases, the emotions you pick up on from others can be entirely subconscious. Maybe you didn't even realize you were feeling nervous until your boss asked you a question, and suddenly you felt your heart skip a beat. This is known as social akinesia, which simply means feeling what someone else is feeling. Studies have shown that you can even pick up on people's emotions through changes in their voice, even if you aren't consciously listening to them. For example, researchers found that participants could tell the difference between audio clips of people who were lying and those who were telling the truth, even when the audio clips were played at a low volume, so that the participants could only just barely hear them. This is crazy because it shows that emotional contagion doesn't require conscious awareness, or even that you reactively listening. But maybe you don't need to listen at all to feel something. Perhaps you just need to be in the presence of the emotion itself. Enter empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Well, not exactly. With empathy, you have to consciously put yourself in someone else's shoes. It's a deliberate act of imagination. Say you see a friend get stung by a bee and then start crying. With emotional contagion, you might start crying too without even realizing what you're doing. But with empathy, you might comfort your friend and ask if they want to talk about what happened. Basically, with emotional contagion, you can't help but react. But with empathy, you choose to respond. Next, let's talk about whether listening to certain sounds can boost your smarts. The Mozart effect was a popular idea in the 90s that claimed listening to classical music, especially Mozart's Sixth Symphony, could increase your IQ and make you smarter. The claim was based on a study published in Nature magazine in 1993. Researchers took two groups of college students and gave them spatial reasoning tests. One group listened to 6 minutes of Mozart's Sixth Symphony before the test, and the other group sat in silence. While this study sparked tons of interest in music and intelligence, further research failed to replicate these results. Still, this hasn't stopped people from claiming that the Mozart effect is real. And there may be something to this after all. While it may not boost your spatial reasoning, one meta-analysis that looked at over 30 studies found that listening to music does have an effect on cognitive performance. The important thing to note here is that this doesn't mean listening to Mozart is any better than listening to anything else. Listening to music, period, can have an effect on cognitive performance, whatever genre that may be. We don't know everything about how our brains process music, but there's evidence that different genres activate different parts of the brain. Maybe one day we all find that listening to a certain genre improves our skills in a certain area. Like listening to Mozart makes you a better problem solver, or listening to Taylor Swift makes you better at math. But for now, it seems like the effects of music on the brain are pretty individualized. So while we may not know exactly how it works, it's clear that sound affects us in many ways. Every time you hear a sound, your brain is processing vibrations and deciding what to do with them. Sometimes your brain will act without you even realizing it, like when you feel a random urge to cry. And sometimes your brain needs your help to decide how to react, like when you're re-listening to a sad song and have to decide whether or not to shed a tear. So the next time you find yourself surrounded by sound, take a moment to appreciate the incredible science that is happening right under your nose. If you want to learn more about sound, check out our episode on musical notes. Thanks for watching.